The imperial crown has only ever graced two heads, the Queen and her father, King George.
You see, it's much smaller, isn't it?
Undergoing just one modification in 1953 to make it more feminine and fit a young Elizabeth.
It was the same height. You know, it would have been up to about there when my father wore it.
I mean, it was huge then.
Yes, very unwieldy.
It's difficult to always remember that diamonds are stones, so they're very heavy.
Yes. Fortunately, my father and I have about the same sort of shaped head.
In real life, the priceless piece of artwork is said to be too dazzling to stare at. Encrusted with nearly 3,000 stones, it weighs a little over a kilo, glittering with more than 2,800 diamonds, along with 273 pearls, 17 sapphires, 11 emeralds and 5 rubies.
Once you put it on, it stays. I mean, it just remains itself.
Yeah. There's history behind every jewel, every stone. The story's best told by Her Majesty herself.
The oldest is probably this sapphire, which is said to have been worn as a ring by Edward the Confessor nearly 1,000 years ago.
It's said the sapphire was buried with him in 1066 before the royal family realised what they'd lost, and 100 years later his body was exhumed and the ring recovered.
The pearls are said to have belonged to the first Queen Elizabeth. The story goes that this strangely shaped ruby was given to the Black Prince after a battle in Spain in 1367. I always like to think of it being worn by Henry V during the Battle of Agincourt.
The Black Prince ruby is better known as the imposter gemstone because it's not a ruby, rather a red spinel. It's donned different imperial crowns over the years, among them Queen Victoria's, and famously, in 1937, toppled from the crown that fell on the ground during the funeral procession of King George V, Elizabeth's grandfather.
It's difficult to be absolutely certain about some of the other stones, because after the execution of Charles I, Cromwell had the crown jewels broken up and sold. The Black Prince's ruby, for instance, was sold for £4. But it was returned to the crown after the restoration of Charles II. Most of the bigger stones have had adventures. According to tradition, this huge sapphire at the back was carried off in his pocket by James II as he went into exile in 1688. It was over 130 years before it was restored to the crown.
No one will ever put a value on the crown. It is priceless. Its worth found in the history of old stones and the addition of new ones, like the world's largest diamond, the Cullinan diamond, that was split in two. One stone now on the crown and one on the sceptre.
Which was found quite by chance by the manager of a mine in South Africa in 1905. Apparently, he just dug it out of the rock face with his walking stick. This is a model which shows you what it looked like. The whole Cullinan diamond, as it came to be known, was given to my great-grandfather, King Edward VII, on his birthday. The Dutch jeweller, who had to split it before it could be polished, was so overcome by the responsibility that he fainted as he struck the blow. But he did it perfectly. There are two smaller pieces which my grandmother always referred to as the chips.
Elizabeth wore the imperial crown after her coronation and every year after that during her reign at the state opening of Parliament, right up until 2019 when it was too heavy for a monarch in her 90s to wear. And this year, when the Queen couldn't attend the annual event, the imperial crown still did, riding in its own carriage, resting on a throne beside Charles. Now, its future's uncertain. It could be remodelled for Charles or retired after almost 100 years of use, the heirloom stones set in a new base for the King. So for now, it fittingly rests on Elizabeth's coffin, a weight she found 70 years of comfort in, history, and a bit of humour as well.
You have to keep your head very still.
Yes, and you can't look down to read the speech. You have to take the speech up. Because if you did, your neck would break, or it'd fall off. So there are some disadvantages to crowns, but otherwise they're quite important things.
Isn't that
Wonderful
just
to have
remarkable?
her own insight into the history.
I know, to see her talk about the history of it, it's just amazing. But it weighs about 1 kilo, so I can understand, you know, as you said, you just don't think about these things. The fact that she couldn't look down to, so she had to memorise her speeches.
Or have the speeches up and
Yeah,
just look.
have an auto cue.
I mean, it's really, and it's an astounding artefact. But what Charles does with that now, once we see the funeral, this will be the last time we probably see the crown as it is, unless it is actually taken and put away. If he remodels it, what's he going to do?
I think that's a great idea, to remodel it and use the similar stones. And
I mean, look, it's been like that for like almost a century now. So he might feel more emotional about it and say, well, maybe we don't need this modernising of the royal family, of the monarchy that Charles is going to do, King Charles will do, then maybe that he will do something different with it, and maybe he'll just say maybe it's on display.
you could break it up into jewellery pieces for...
Send it around the world, and it's like an amazing sort of like thing we have to do, like we're all in a Nicolas Cage movie.
Well, we all, like, the jewellery's so important. We see, you know, Princess Kate wear jewellery that Princess Di had worn, the new portrait.
What about that big diamond? So big
I'll
that
take
it had
that.
chips come off.
Oh, yes, they're just called the chips.
They're just called the
But, you know,
chips.
the new portrait that was released today, which is just so beautiful, and even there, the nod to King George, she received that brooch for her 18th birthday from her father.
And those 3 pearls, the 3-strand pearls that she loves so very much, was part of her iconic look.
G'day, it's Ali.
And Karl.
Thanks for watching the Today YouTube channel.
Subscribe now for brand new videos every day and exclusive bonus clips.
Ali, say please.
Please? Why?
Please? I don't know.